Welcome to Inside the Barrel, episode 6, where John and I kind of dive deep into some of the technical ways to do things in the ServiceNow platform, give you a behind the scenes look at working as a solution architect or platform engineer at a consulting firm. John and I are really excited for today's talk. We are going to talk about loading JavaScript files into the backend in order to utilize them on the platform. There are a lot of caveats and limitations here, which we're going to discuss, but essentially we're kind of going to get you going through the process.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, and I think I remember you had a problem, or this came up recently for you, John.
Right. So the ask was, and some of you may know the pain you go through dealing with date manipulations. So on the portal side, we have a little bit of help on the client side of portal where Moment.js is loaded into the client side. Now, there are other thoughts about Moment already. The developers have stopped developing it. It is no longer maintained, and they tell you other libraries to use. But as it stands right now, ServiceNow has Moment.js loaded in, or has it in it for portal on the client side, so you can deal with dates and calculations and stuff like that via Moment on the client side only. But there are times where you want to deal with server side dates and do calculations or whatever you need to do on the server side. And then I think we had been talking about can we use this same approach to get it to work inside the platform? Because I know there are two camps out there on how to, on using glide date time or finding
Yeah.
better ways to handle date calculations and manipulations.
Yeah, the horror stories of Glide Date, or Glide Date, it's terrible. But
Let's, yes.
yeah, so do you want to screen share? We'll start with a little notepad of what we're going to talk about, and then we'll kind of dive in.
Yeah, let's do that. All right. As always, I have my trusty online notepad all ready to go. So I think our problem is easier date manipulation. And then how do we solve that?
Yeah. Yes. And then, I think the other thing is like, how do you load JavaScript files into the system in case it's more than just Moment in the future?
Yeah, and I've done this before. I was on a project with quite a big client, ServiceNow, and I needed a better way to do drop down selects that gave much more, or it gave a lot more options and abilities than the current what is it, SN record picker or SN choice list. I needed better features, I guess. So I loaded a an Angular multi-select library I found out there, and there's a couple ways you can handle, as far as the portal is concerned, there's a couple ways you can handle loading JavaScript in.
Yeah, maybe we'll talk about both of those, like how to do it on the portal side and how to do it on the the port or on the backend side. I remember we also did one like fuzzy search. I think you remember that one where
Oh yeah,
we did do
yeah,
that.
yeah. That one was fun.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. So let's kind of dive into the instance, and we'll start with like loading Moment.js in the backend. So what we could do is go to the System Administrator tab, type in script include, and essentially what we're going to do is load the entire script. So then let's open up click new, and then open up a new tab, and let's go to moment.js, and let's go find the non-minified version of moment.js.
Which version?
Just the non-minified one, so that we could,
Oh, I got you.
you know,
Okay.
see it.
So yeah, so you can see, where did it go? Right here, they talk about there being better alternatives, more modern alternatives, because this is really old. Um, I thought they had something somewhere else.
What are the new modern alternatives? I'm curious. Maybe we
Let's
could.
see, project status. So they. It's been a while since I've looked at this. Um,
I think it talks about like the browser itself or Node.js start having some of the features built in. Um,
yeah, yeah.
and in ServiceNow space, we're kind of stuck with Rhino for a while. So
Yeah. So here's what they recommend. They've got Luxon days date
yeah,
FNS.
let's try Luxon. Well, I mean, worst case, we could always go back and um, so and then click on like install guide maybe. Oh, scroll down. It's down there. So maybe the
Download.
yeah. So we want the scroll down the non ES6 one if they have one available. Ooh.
I don't see a non ES6 one.
So yeah,
And
so
see, this
this
is
probably
and this is where we are going to run into problems, is trying to find
yeah,
a current library that supports service.
yeah. Essentially, what we would have needed to do is take the ES6 one and then convert it to
Oh,
the old one.
no.
So we're not going to use Luxon. That's okay. We tried.
No.
Let's let's go back to Moment.js. And then what we want is there should be like a download page.
But you don't want. Oh,
I
that's
don't
the
want
min.
the
Okay, so here's
yeah.
So here's the non-minified version.
Yeah, let's
With
copy
spaces and tabs. So we want to grab all of that.
this. And then
Go back here. And are we just calling it Moment? We don't want to call it Moment.js.
yeah, you could call it whatever.
Oh,
It doesn't
you know
matter.
what?
Oh,
Probably need to be in the right scope. Here we go.
So
Oh,
Moment.
and we do want to allow this
Yeah.
on all application scopes. Perfect. Okay. Global.moment.
Perfect. And then
Do we want client callable?
we don't in this case because this is just for the platform. So
Yep.
under the script, just delete all of it, like, and then just paste it over. And so when you try to save this, it's probably going to give us a little bit of an error. Yeah. And so you'll find this happens a lot, especially if it's ES6 code, where they're saying like, hey, this thing doesn't exist, or it's not valid JavaScript for this version of Rhino. So let's go to that line if possible.
4913.
And this is why you don't want the minified version, because it would
Yeah, trying to
really
find
hard.
stuff is gonna be. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, so it's saying that it doesn't like, oh, like symbol. So this one's probably a little. I haven't done it on the newer version of it, but essentially what we need to do here is find ways to make this ES5, and so you may need a little like technical background in order to do this. But I don't know if we even need this line of code. Um,
So
in
I
general.
think in a previous project I've worked on, I gotta find.
Because what it's trying to do is do this anonymous function here, right? Where it's trying to say, like, take proto symbol.for and equal to an anonymous function of moment that. And for what we're using this for, we don't need to do that. So I'm pretty sure we'd be safe just deleting lines 4913 through 4917.
Well, I want to say I have a copy of one. I'm trying to find it real quick, but I think I have a copy of one that does work as far as, and I hope I didn't delete it or anything. But let's just check. I'm just looking at an old.
Yeah. And I mean, it doesn't hurt to just comment it out, right? If you wanted to test. This is kind of how I would handle it.
Sure.
Like, understand what it's trying to do at some level, even if it's not perfect, and then, see if you can get it to save the script. Because once you get it to save, you're probably in a good state.
So as a matter of fact, there are, and maybe we should look at this real quick um, while we're talking about it. Um, and maybe there aren't. I don't know what's loaded into this demo um,
Mm-hmm.
instance, but I was just looking for my copy of one, and I noticed. Um, okay. Oh, well, there goes my browser.
Nice.
Let's try that again real quick.
Yeah.
How about we do that?
I gotten better at transitioning between like if your browser crashes and share stops to like just videos of us.
Oh, nice, nice,
I'm
nice.
getting,
And
getting better.
FYI,
Getting better.
I'm not even using the dev version.
Oh,
So
jeez. Thankfully, we're
yeah.
not getting sponsored by Microsoft here.
Oh, I'd have words. They messed up the dev version on one of my favorite extensions, and I can't use the dev version anymore because they I don't know what they did, but Angular the ng inspector doesn't work. You get
Oh, jeez.
nothing from it. Anyways, okay. So what was I doing? I was looking.
You were looking for a moment, but
Right. So I think in a couple of apps, like what was it? Because it crashed the other window I was looking at.
well, let's try commenting that out and seeing if
Oh,
we can get
that's what
through
it
it.
is. Appointment booking.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it actually loads in
Oh,
moment
moment.
time zone with data,
Hmm.
and so I was gonna look at that because I wanted to see the.
Oh yeah, yeah. If you wanna, let's go into
Well, I'm
appointment
trying.
booking.
Well, I don't know that it's actually loaded in here. I don't think we
Oh,
have
we don't have
appointment
appointment
booking.
booking.
Yeah, I was just
Yeah.
looking at another instance. Oh, that's nice. It's one of those read only with protections, so I can't even look at it there.
Oh,
But but let's see. I'm trying to
but
find it.
that does bring up a good point. I'll maybe let's continue and I'll load up a PDI and install appointment booking and seeing if how that differs and we can kind of come back to it.
Sure. Um, it looks like it comes in from a couple of different things. All right. Well, I can't find it on this other instance I had been using, so yeah, we'll just do it this way. Okay. So
So go back to that new
here we are.
record.
Oh,
Oh,
did it? Oh, I totally lost
totally.
it, didn't it?
It's okay.
All right. All application scopes. We're going to remove all of that. And where did we? Here we go. We'll just grab all of that, plug it in, and then expect a error. And so you're saying if we go back up here to 4913,
I don't believe we need that line of code. Yeah.
so you're saying if we pull out this entire component,
Now try saving. Probably another error we'll get.
no, have faith.
Hey, what do you
Hey,
know?
look at that. All right.
So the next thing now, if you open up background scripts
Background scripts.
or fix script.
Oh, hey,
whatever.
did we install Explorer in
Oh,
here?
is
I think
Explorer in here?
um
Oh,
yeah,
we
it
did.
is.
Nice. Let's use Explorer.
I think we talked about this on another episode, but that episode was corrupt and actually didn't make it into the list of episodes.
Dang.
This is another. It's on ServiceNow Share. It's free. As a consultant, though, it's tricky getting permission to install stuff like this. But
Yeah.
this is one of those things I wish they would replace background scripts with, because it's just that much
Like,
better.
way better. Yeah, totally. Totally. All right. So
All
let's
right.
do a gs.include and then type in moment. But it has to be in a string.
Now, here's a question for you: do we have to do global or anything like that if we
If
want
we're
to do
in
global?
global scope, we don't. So, but it's a better practice to always put it, just so that if you ever copy that code somewhere else, even in another scope, it'll work. So you could type global.moment. Yeah. You're right.
I know sometimes you'll
Keeping
get
me
that
honest.
message where, yeah, well, it's only because it just happened recently where someone was asking me about why he kept getting an error about, needed in global qualifier, a little global qualifier. And that's the reason is you're in a different scope, and the script include you want to bring in, or the functions you're calling, belong to a script include from a different scope. And as long as it's allowable, you just have to preference with the correct piece.
So I sent you some oven code
Oh yes,
in
magic
chat,
ovens.
just to essentially check if our script is working. Right. This isn't actually gonna call anything in moment, but this will at least test if we loaded it properly.
All right. Oh, in that chat, I see now. I'm all looking at Slack.
Oh yeah, Zoom chat.
Okay. So here comes magic oven code. Boom. We stuck it in the oven. There we go.
And
It's
not
out.
really hard, but it's just essentially iterating through the include to see what functions it has available. And so there you
Oh,
go.
look at
These are
that.
all of the functions that we essentially have available to us. Um, so probably what we want to do is try calling like moment dot version or something like that, and seeing if these functions actually work,
I was gonna
or
say, I
if
feel
you
like I'm
know.
missing something though. Because I was just using moment the other day, and there's an is before or an is after. And I don't know if this is exhaustive or how this works, but I'm not
Yeah.
seeing it. Okay. Anyways, so you can do stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just comment that out, and then we can.
And then
So this should give us today. There we are.
there you go. See?
Yeah,
So that wasn't too hard, right? At least to show the
no.
concept of you taking a like a JavaScript file from normally a flat file outside in the world, as long as it's using ES 2015 syntax, essentially, you'll be able to load it in. If it's not, you could use what was that website that we used, the ES6 console or something like
Oh,
that,
right.
and try
Let's
to
see.
convert it. But that's probably a lot of work to try to do.
It is. It really depends on it really depends on the functions. Like some functions don't.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
they
you,
turn into a pretty huge conversion back to ES5. Some of those simple, some of the simple ones that are written in ES6 with the nice, easy way to write them turns into this huge, long
Yeah, but this is probably where I tell
thing.
someone to start. Hey, you have some JavaScript flat file that you want to call, or a function you want to call. Like it's only in ES6, like Luxin, for example. Paste it in here, put ES 2015 out there, copy
Yeah.
that into a script include, and see if you can save and then call it. That would be
Yeah.
my best recommendation, if you wanted to use ES6 code. But normally you have to find some ES 2015 code, until they, maybe in Rome, they'll update the JavaScript backend. I heard rumors. So
Ooh,
um,
how bad is that gonna mess thing? Like how
ServiceNow is
how
pretty
much do
good
they?
at backwards compatibility.
Okay, well, I was just gonna. I was more talking like how good is JavaScript at backwards compatibility? Because that's
Oh, yeah, I might like I don't actually know the back end of like how they load JavaScript, because it's like ServiceNow is just a big Java app, right?
right,
So
right.
they're
Well,
essentially.
it doesn't it isn't that the JavaScript's the abstraction layer really? Because Java's going to. I know sometimes you can get errors about Java
Mhm,
not understanding what you wrote in
mhm.
JavaScript, and so I think Java just interprets what's written in JavaScript and then does its thing.
Yeah, my guess is they do some get it to the byte machine level, and then run it. So they just need to figure out the best way to scale it. And it may be that like script includes, it has an option like ES6 versus, you know, old one. I don't know. So we'll see what they end up doing technically for it.
Convert ES5 to ES6. Yes.
Yeah, well, no, it'll just be like run on ES6 or run on ES5. You know, that's how I think they would do it. Cool.
Well,
So that kind of showed how we did it in the back end, and I think you wanted to let's show how to access moment on the front end, right?
Right. Yeah, and I'm gonna give a quick little background on this and how it shows up in the portal, anyways. So for the portal, the way you can even find this is if you turn on your dev tools and you get in to sources on a page within Service Portal. There's a script folder, and then there is a couple of JS includes, and I think it's the first one here. And you just do a search for moment, and you'll see that they've loaded it in. And I think there's another one here. And obviously these are minified because there's only single lines. But that's how you know it's loaded for the client side right off the bat. So you can do, you know, if whatever you're building has the ability to pass data to the client side and you can do stuff there versus doing it on the server side, then you're good. You're done. You have your manipulations and your time date stuff handled there. But like we just showed, let's say you don't have that option. You've got to deal with dates before you pass data to the HTML side, the template side. How do you deal with it that way? So now it's almost the same way as what we just did in Explore. You're just going to include that script include, and now you'll have the access to moment on the server side. So really what we'd end up doing is something like this. We go into Service Portal and see, now I'm going to have to whip up a whole new widget.
Oh, tough life.
I know. It's what I do all day long, every day. So we'll just do something like moment test, right? Save this.
You know, it's going to be interesting when we do a podcast on how to do this in UI Builder.
Well, but
because it's not.
I'd be hoping, or I'd hope that there are better tools within UI Builder to deal with dates.
Yeah. Yeah, because they do have the script side of it on UI Builder. I just don't know. Like, it's not meant to write a lot of code in, so we'll see. We'll see how they handle it.
Okay. All right, so we're going to do basically the same thing here. We're just going to include GS include global.moment. And we'll set a variable or a data property to something. So now we should get something to display. Oh, I got to put that on a page. Oh, well, I guess, we can do it this way.
Enable preview. Oh, so good.
All right. Hey, look at that.
Beautiful.
Got a date. So now for the portal, we now have access to mobile or to moment on the server side and can deal with, we can do date manipulations here. And like I said, there's a couple of nice ones like is after or is before that I tend to use because currently a lot of my work is HR portals. And a lot of times for what we're trying to accomplish is you have, basically you can think of employees as a pre-boarded employee, an onboarded employee, and then, well, really two, pre-boarded and an employee. And so a lot of times we're looking at the employee start date off the HR profile. We need to determine, are they still pre-boarding or are they post-boarding? pre-boarding? Have they already started? You know, are we past their start date?
And
Like,
and I yeah, go for it.
well, I was going to say an example is one client wanted confetti to rain down if today was their start date. So when they log into the portal, if today was their start date, we want confetti. And so
Beautiful.
I used moment to say, you know, is it today?
Yeah.
If so, run this. But we
I
have
want
other things that.
I
Well, I
want a
was going to say
birthday
we have
cake
other.
to show
Yeah, a
for my
floating
birthday.
unicorn. Woo!
Yeah,
My kids
yeah.
would love it. But you know, if I want to show specific content only for pre-boarding, and even then, I can get even more fine-tuned and say, oh, you know what? Start date 7 days prior. I want to show this content 8 days prior and 30 days prior to 8 days prior. I want to show this content, and it makes it so much easier when I can just say is before or is after versus trying to do the whole glide date component
Interesting.
to figure out where I'm at, you know.
And you would think that in the future ServiceNow may add that to like delivery content, right? Because they add like dates and times for when content can show through their out of the box widgets, but they don't give you the flexibility of having dynamic dates like -7 days from a a reference point, right? So
Right. Yeah, it's you're really stuck with 2 dates on
delivery
content
content.
delivery.
Yeah.
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 You get your start date and your end date. There's no way to say, you can't even put that JavaScript code in there to do the -7 days or whatever you want. You're just stuck with 2 dates. And so this is a nice way to try to get around that, to really fine tune what you're showing to your end user according to dates. So
And just to make sure we're not going crazy here, could you remove line 5 to make sure line 8 doesn't actually work? Because you remember how you said it was like loading on a page sometimes? Just make sure that doesn't work. Yeah. Okay, cool. So it is using our...
Oh, what?
It's not.
Now that is odd.
So what I'm thinking that's using is ServiceNow has that function loaded, right? So like moments probably not... Because you remember you said it's loaded on the...
Well, you can see it from the portal. You can see that it's loaded here, and I think we can also find it somewhere over here too. I mean, we'd see it in here, and so I don't know exactly. I always thought it was only on the client side, but it looks like, I mean, if this is to be, where did it go? If this is to be real, then I guess it's loading all the way across, but I don't know. I don't know how you'd make that determination from here. You know what I mean? Because it doesn't. You're not getting separated between client and server. It's just loaded.
Yeah. So that's interesting to see if they are being loaded on the client side. It looks like a widget has access to it when it's editing, right? So, cool.
Yeah, that's a neat piece to know
caching,
about that.
Or there's some weird caching going on. It could be that
well,
too.
let's see. Can we do? Let me
like
open up.
save this and like open it in on a, or you maybe put the widget on a page, and see when you go to that page.
Yeah, we'll do a couple things. What I really wanted was this guy.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
And see if that makes a difference.
Yeah, it looks like.
Okay, so that still is there. So let's do the other piece and throw it on a. We'll throw it on a page. Ugh, of course, I don't remember what the default page is.
Oh, I like throwing it on the index.
Okay. Yeah, we'll just throw it on the index.
Cool.
Let's see. I'm gonna say either one of those columns should be all right. I think we'll do it on that column. So now, if we... Yeah, look at
cool.
that. That's
So
that is really interesting that works via
the server side script.
the server side without importing it.
You know,
That's
we
really
could
good to know.
we could test that more with like fuzzy, right? Remember how, like, if you ever wanted to do like client side searching, we could try using, fuzzy. I think there is also another way to do it on the portal by adding it as like a dependency JS widget. Maybe we
Yeah,
wanted to
so
show
that
that.
would be, yeah, as another option. If we go back to this view, and we scroll down here, we have dependencies. And then you can do this multiple ways too. You can, I don't remember if it's going to be in here or not, because I don't think it just loads stuff.
Yeah.
Well, so this one might be ours, but see, there's that other one I was talking about. But if we load that there, then we know that should be loaded as a dependency. But you can do it a different way too. And this is one of those things where you have to talk to your client, because some clients get a little iffy about loading external libraries, especially government clients, right? They want stuff only inside ServiceNow, but there's another way you can do this that's easier and faster, and it's connecting up to a CDN, a content delivery network, and doing it that way. Let's see, it'd be the way you do it is you do new and give it a name. Oh yeah,
I think
right.
it exists, right?
And what you would, oh my gosh, oh come on now. So let me go to dependencies now, since that got all weird. Sometimes I don't enjoy the update that flips you somewhere else, or it brings in, it updates to a page you were previously on.
Yeah.
And
if you have multiple tabs, it
yeah,
it
which I
remembers
always do. Oh, hey, look at that.
Yeah.
Microsoft.
That's right. You're testing if I'm paying attention to transition us to the talking view.
It's so true. Are you awake? Are you having fun? All right, let me if it's not one thing, it's another. Either your volume's low, or my browser keeps crashing, or the whole thing just goes down, right?
You can totally see we're professionals.
What browsers do professionals use? That'd be the big question, right?
Internet Explorer 11.
No, it's 9. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think you already created it, right? So you just got to go to the.
Well, but it didn't list it. And you know what though? I bet you. Yes, leave. It didn't create it, but I wonder if that's because this isn't necessarily the. Is this the wrapper name? I think it might be. So I don't know that it did create. I don't think it did create it.
Okay.
Maybe, I don't know. So
It'll tell you real quick. Oh, nice.
There we go. And then you do a new JS include, and this time you do URL, like you'll give it a name. And then what you'd end up wanting to do is see if you can find.
I think you have the other tab for it. Oh, does it need to be a CDN? I think it just can flat file load it, right?
No, it doesn't have to be a CDN. But
yeah,
this is generally what I end up doing. Like if Moment has their own link that you can use, then you're good. But usually, no. Well, I don't like that.
It's like a yeah. I mean, the CDN is more for robustness, so that it doesn't go down, right? Like
right.
And so you may be able to just we could just use the direct link for now, but
Yeah, if you're on, let's see, did we
I think
have
it's
that
one to the right, one to the right.
right here?
Yeah.
So if you grab this guy and went back into this one and put that in as your URL, then you would get, I think though, I'd be willing to bet we'd still get an error just because of that problem, with the symbol thing. We may still generate an error
I think
because of
this
that.
one actually doesn't. So this is like it's
Well,
good
no, no,
about
no. I
because
mean, if you load it in, if you do a GS include, it
oh,
could possibly error out because of that, but you have no way of editing it.
well, I don't think it would in this case because it loads it into your browser, and as long as the browser supports ES6,
You think
you'd be
so?
fine. I
Okay.
think it'll be okay.
But this is how you do it for the external library. Again, some clients get a little
Mhm.
iffy about that, and they don't necessarily care
It's not even
for
that too.
external
If like
libraries.
that website goes down, like you're gonna get broken pages, right? So
Right. Well, that's the whole point of a CDN is usually they're, at a 99% or 99.9%
yeah,
uptime, but you do have a concern there that it could go down, or um, the link between, the instance and uh, the
the internet.
location, right, could have a problem.
Yeah,
So there are considerations,
mhm.
but with anything,
Yeah, and like you should lock to a specific version, but one thing you could do is not lock to a specific version, and then you get automatic updates, right? Which is kind of nice, but I don't
that runs
recommend
its
it.
own risks.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Um,
there
and so,
there are a lot of considerations to be made no matter how
how
you
would you
do it.
access this? So once it's just loaded, you just be able to call a moment, right? As if it was.
So I believe once it's loaded, you should be able to call moment, because you'd end up doing it the same way. So we got to go back to our widget here. When we go back to our widget,
And maybe let's use the example of fuzzy, right? So let's go to fuzzy.js and add it as a dependency so that we could just show that that's actually working. I think it was fuzzy. Yeah, fuse. Sorry, fuse. Oof,
no,
the
it's
worst.
I only remember it as fuzzy
It's fuzzy.
too.
Installation, and then there should be
So
like a
they have a
CDN. Cool.
CDN, a direct link right there.
Yeah, and so we'll use their latest. Nice.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll go back here and we'll do dependencies. We'll do a new one.
And fuzzy searching for fuse in this case is essentially the ability to like look at a word and see if it matches a criteria, even if it's not spelt correctly. So if you mistype ball and you said BLAL, like it would still have a score essentially to be able to say this is what I think you meant to do. Google does this a lot, right? When you start typoing stuff, and it still finds the search for you because it's using this sort of fuzzy search. So
Right. The implementation we did this on, they had a lot of job data, and they presented it to the end user, and it was a concern over misspelling. So like he said, if you take a word like Boston and spell it like BSTON, you still want it to pick up all the Bostons, and so the algorithm in that, let me see if I can remember how this works. It would take the letters around it to as part of its consideration and say, okay, well, B is one letter away, so that's a good one, and then STON are so many letters away, and so we think this is Boston is a correct match, or and then you can fine tune it with weights and other things and precision on how tight you want it to be. So if you said 0, then it's an exact match, but if you give it leeway, then you can have differences near it, I
yeah,
guess.
so when you load it on the widget, we should be able to call, and we may have to look at the documentation, but I think it's like new fuse, right? Is how you would potentially do it.
I think so. I'll have to look. Hang on, give me
Yeah.
a second here. Oh, I can just edit. We don't want moment. Now we should be able to find fuse in the list. There we go. And if I'm correct, if I remember right, we should be able to reload this with our sources
Mm-hmm.
and, or no, I'm sorry, let's do network and we'll put it on JS and we should see Fuse show up there,
Yep.
right there. So
Beautiful.
now we see Fuse is loaded. I'm trying to think of a quick, easy way to implement this.
Yeah, I think on if you go to their tab, if you go to that tab, there's a quick and easy one example. They show live demo maybe,
Is
or
it live
maybe it's on their
demo?
homepage. Yeah, so they have this JSON. Scroll down. I don't think we need the JSON, but we want the yeah. So new fuse, right? If you just do a new fuse and then call search on some pattern, right?
All right. Let's see. I think we did that on
We
the
did on the
client side.
client side, yeah.
So,
I mean, even if we can call, some sort of fuse, right? And I don't think you need to give it parameters. Let me look up on my side too.
that's got to be an array, right? So we'll just use my example, right?
Yeah, so you
I'm
can
trying to think of
do
I'm trying to think of names I'm not going to misspell.
here. I'm just gonna copy this in chat, and you could utilize that. So there you go. I just sent you, and it's from their website. Essentially, you create, and obviously we can't use cons, but create a JSON object, and then you just pass in the keys, and then you do a search, and it should return some output. So.
All right, so we'll do that. And boom. There we go. So that, and then
We can set up an instance of it. Yep. And then make that a var. And then you should just be able to call fuse.search now. And it should output something. So we could, output that. Even in console, we could output it. We don't have to output it on or we could output it on the HTML if you want.
let's see. So it's fuse dot search. What did you say, John? Oh, I see, John.
Yeah. And so that's searching the entire object, right? Looking for John, right, which isn't actually in our object, but it's going to return a rating that says, hey, we think we found this one that matches it, right? So.
Oh my gosh, terrible today with spelling.
And this will return a JSON data, right? So.
Oh, will it? All right, well, let's do this then.
JSON.stringify that.
Yeah, whoops. Oh, my spelling is atrocious today.
You want to do like a comma, empty, and then 2. So it looks, let's make it a little prettier. So after the John one, do a comma, do an empty string, and then comma 4.
4?
Yeah, that's the indenting. So, all right.
Okay, perfect. So we'll save that.
So this should just work. This should just work. Oh, I wonder. Yeah, there you go. See.
So it finds John from John, and this is just your default settings, and you'd have to read over that documentation on it. But it's the default precision and weights that it uses on how it does this.
This was a great example, right? We loaded a dependency on the portal side, and then in your client script, you're essentially just able to call it just as you would. I also think that this is using ES6. I can't remember if I'd have to look. It could be that Fuse.js uses ES6 stuff, so
it might,
but it might not. So
in our I never ran into a problem with it in our implementation, and so whether it uses it or not is, I don't know. All I'm saying is it doesn't error out when you use it. It works great, and I think this ref index is from Fuse as far as this is the score it gives it.
Yep. Well,
it's not part of the.
Well, no, I think that that reference is it's saying it's the first element there. Like if you changed it to Steve,
Oh,
search
oh,
for
right,
Steve,
yeah,
it'll
sure,
be the second. But there is like options to include score and things like that, and
yeah, yeah.
it's a really fun library for projects when you're trying to build a search. Um, and so that should return like the one, right?
You'd hope. Let's see.
Yeah,
Hey,
yeah,
look at that.
yeah.
So you can see that I misspelt ham with him, and I still find Hamilton because of the algorithm that's in it. Yeah, and like Dorian said, it really, if you want a good way of improving um, filtering down through an array or your data set, this fuse.js is a really nice one because it gives you a lot of tuning ability. Like you can just throw it out there as the default and still get good stuff, but you can really fine tune it
Yeah.
to
And
meet your needs.
the biggest use case I can think of where this would be nice is, let's say you're building your own component or your own my tickets, right? So essentially, currently out of the box, if you click on requests up top, John, um, there this is the out of the box one that's new if you've ever used the my requests or the standard ticket. But like that search open requests, if you wanted that to be like, really good about searching and finding the thing
Yeah.
that you care about and not have to be exact, this is kind of where Fuse would, right? You would have a query that pulls in all of the requests, and then you'd have Fuse essentially say, hey, like if they type in any of these things, like this is what we're gonna do.
Well, and
So
that's basically how we implemented it for that other client was,
mhm,
we had this huge data set of job recs, right? And people could, when there was some predefined filtering, on cities and so forth and job titles and things like that. But we also had a free type search bar like this one where you could type in things and that would take that huge data set and filter it right down to our defined precision on what we wanted to return back to the end user. And so yeah, it really it can really like take you to that next level of searching and filtering on a data set.
yeah, and because like Glide Query, for example, returns a JSON object already, right? Like you could just throw that into Fuse, and now you have the ability to search and return those records, and then be able to display it the way you want, right? So that's kind of
Yeah,
the thinking
yeah.
behind how to use some cool JavaScript libraries out there, load them in on the portal
Hmm.
side as a dependency, or load them in on a script include, and then just call the script include. So those are kind of those two techniques you can use if they're compatible. So
Right. Yep. And
cool.
you can also, I know it's a little bit of a lift to get Fuse on there, but I think this goes back to what you were just saying. If you have a huge data set and you need to find specific pieces out of it, even this is not even anything that the client does, but you just need to find stuff out of it. It's nice that you get that ref index back. You know what I mean? Because then you can pinpoint those specific array item or elements with that, which brings up another loaded library. They do load underscore or low dash. I think it's underscore though, um, into the portal. So that's also available, which is very handy for light stuff like that. Like you can find index references and stuff like that for different things.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it is kind of nice. The portal is really robust because it's been around for a few years, right? And the we're excited to see what UI Builder can do when it comes to advanced things.
Yeah. But like the
But
Matrix, you can bend so many rules.
yeah, well, I think the UI Builder's route is essentially you build the component, the React component, and then you load it
Mm-hmm.
into the system as a React component, so it does everything you want it to do already. Um,
Right.
so I think that's kind of the different model here is rather than building it in like a UI interface like this on the portal for specific types of widgets, you would build it on VS Code, right, and push it to your instance. So I think we'll eventually do a one on those. Like we'll build a component. We'll probably build a Fuse component, right? Simple,
Yeah.
easy.
I'm excited for, because I really want to get my hands dirty on the coding side of UI Builder. I'm not
Yeah.
necessarily so like I'm not the admin type where it's click to configure. I want to get my hands dirty and see the
Yeah.
magic behind it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Cool. So you could stop screen share. We'll come back to just us. Bam. Cool. So so just to recap, today we talked about essentially loading in JavaScript files, specifically things like moment.js or fuse.js, so that, they make your coding a little bit easier. We demoed it in Explorer. So shout out to Explorer for being a really awesome way better than background scripts.
Yes.
Um,
Totally.
we showed how on the widget side you could essentially just do a gs.include,
Mhm.
or you can add it as a dependency, or you could use the ones that are already loaded by ServiceNow. You could
Right.
use it on
Right.
both the server side script and the client side script, it looked like. So
Yes. Yep.
so
And I
that
think,
was cool.
yeah, and I think that follows through. I mean, I know we talked about it, but we didn't actually get into it. But that follows through on the platform side. So you'd have your script include available for platform side use, which then to get it, I think to get it, and I'm going to throw some theory out there, but I think to get it to work on the client side, you got to do your Ajax, your
Mm-hmm.
client or Glide Ajax to get it loaded client side, or at least pass. I mean, you can pass the data over to your script including and then get it back. So you'd have to build out your own specific functions that way.
Yeah, we didn't talk about, calling it Glide Ajax just because I'm not a big fan of calling it Glide Ajax if you can load it on the client side already. Just because it's going to be faster, right? The server
Yeah.
would have to process it and then send it over versus, hey, you already pull the data that you need and then do the processing on the client side. That
So if we had marked that script include client callable, that would allow us to directly call it from a client script.
So what we would do actually is we would keep the script include the way it is, create a
Uh
new
huh.
script include that is client callable that just loads the gs.include and passes that data back. So you
Okay.
wouldn't you couldn't just turn on that client callable and it would work. We would have to create a new glide, a new script include that's client callable that includes that and then passes that data back in the right format that ServiceNow needs it.
Okay. That
So
makes more sense. But I hope that answers anyone's question out there about how do I get this to work on the client side inside the platform, because yeah,
mm,
Moment is a very useful tool,
mhm.
and it can save a lot of heartache over glide date time because
Yeah, like if you needed to use it, for example, in well, I guess like in a scheduled job, you could just gs.include it. But if you needed to use it on a client script for whatever reason, like it only show this if this date is greater than this or something like
right.
that, and you
Yep.
wanted to use moment, like that would be the route you'd want to go for a glide Ajax. But it would probably slow down stuff, so you want to need to have a really good reason to do it.
Yeah, you really have to watch the performance and make sure you're not increasing problems just to not use glide age or glide date time.
Yeah, exactly.
Again, there's always considerations two or
Mm.
for or against these methods of doing things.
Yeah. Yep. Cool. All right. Well, if you like the video, subscribe. I know the title's probably off, and we have to change that, but hope
There's a
you're.
button somewhere, right over
Yeah,
there, or is it over
I
here?
think it's this. I don't know. I don't actually know.
Down.
So cool.
Yeah,
All right.
subscribe so you don't ever miss an episode again.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.